everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to a brand new edition of Daily to Dynasty. I'm Kirk Corbinoff alongside Rich Wilhelm and Marcus Taylor. Social media handles are on the screen at Seagorf94, at Coda522, and at ENTaylor29. And of course, you can follow the show at Daily to Dynasty for all the latest fantasy football news and advice. This show is brought to you in partnership with the Underdog newsletter. If you are a fan of all things Underdog stories, and if you're a sports fan, you probably are, subscribe to their newsletter. They go through every single article and podcast and video and interview, and they compile it all into one great place, and they send it out to you. jokermag.com/newsletter. All right, guys, it has been a topsy-turvy week in the NFL, complete with Tuesday night football, and Thursday night football is Kaputski this week. It's going to be a real fun game. Two Monday night footballs going on this week. It's going to be a weird week in the NFL. Rich and I play each other. Marcus is the number one team in our collective league, which is another strange thing. We're gonna have fun. I'm gonna have fun beating Rich this week, and we're gonna talk about all the games. Marcus is on a laptop and not his phone. It's a big week. There's a lot going on.
A lot of changes.
We're gonna have fun, and let's kick things off, Marcus, with your Minnesota Vikings.
No, we can skip that.
No, we're gonna start here. A crushing blow at the hands of Russell Wilson, but they played a good game. They looked good up until the end there.
Up until they didn't.
Yeah, but that's better than the Jets.
I mean, barely.
The Jets never looked good. Once this season. So at least you had a moment. They're the 4.5-point favorites against the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are a mess and a half. They've fired Dan Quinn. Finally, they can score points offensively. So from a fantasy perspective, right, you have options along that offense. But the defense is highly questionable. I don't know if the coaching change will improve the defense at all. That's sort of a to be determined. But from a fantasy perspective, Marcus, let's start with you. And also just from a game perspective, what are you expecting out of this one?
Fantasy perspective, I'll say start Kirk Cousins. This Falcons defense is not very good, as you can tell. They've given up many leads this season. 7 wide receivers have topped 90 yards in just 5 games against this Falcons defense. I'm thinking Thielen and Jefferson also starts. They can have big games to go along with Cousins. Dalvin Cook most likely miss this game. Madison could be a good fill-in. Even if they dial back the run game, it could benefit Kirk Cousins even more. So Cousins, Thielen, Jefferson, Madison, if you don't have a running back, if you have a running back on the bye week, Madison could be a good fill-in. On the flip side, Matt Ryan, I might have to sit him. 1 touchdown in 3 games. Julio was hurt, hamstring issue. He didn't look good last week. Didn't put up many points. They definitely relied on Todd Gurley a lot last week. They may just do the same thing this week. New coach. I may just sit Matt Ryan this week. And as far as the game, I think the Vikings can win this game. I think they will look sharp on offense. I think that Cousins will look sharp. They'll take advantage of this matchup, and I think the Vikings can win this game pretty easily.
But the question is, do you think they can cover the spread? And for that, Rich, we'll throw it over to you. You're on a bit of a betting tear lately. College sports, basketball, the NFL, you name it. Rich is cashing tickets nightly. So take us through the spread here, maybe a little betting perspective, and then just your thoughts about this game.
All right, so what I've noticed is when teams fire their coaches, they play well that next game. And, it could be related to absolutely nothing. It could be, just, the new energy in the locker room. But, just based on Quinn being fired, I think the Falcons are going to play a little better than they have. Well, they're 0-5. They have to play a little better than they have. The spread is 4. I think this game really could go either way just because Dalvin Cook is going to be out. I think Madison is going to step up. He had a good game when Cook went down. The Vikings should have won that game. Obviously that terrible call on 4th and 1 there. You kick the field goal, you go up by 8. You saw the Seahawks didn't get the 2-point conversion, so it would have worked out maybe in the end. But, on the other side of the ball, Julio, if he plays, it's a big thing. If Julio can play, he's not going to find the end zone, but he's going to help Matt Ryan out, who desperately needs it. The Falcons have a ton of players, but they just never work the same week. You'll have Calvin Ridley have absolutely no receptions, no yards. Then he'll go off, and Julio will get nothing. Then Gurley will have 2 touchdowns. They just never work together. And that it could be this week that happens. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I don't think either defense really can stop a lot. So no, I don't think the Vikings are going to cover the spread. But can the Vikings win, and will the Vikings probably win? Yes. But I think it's going to be closer than 4. I think it's going to be a very close game. And every time I pick for the Vikings, they lose. And every time I pick against the Vikings, they win so far this year. So let's go Vikings.
Wow, what a slap in the face. So we're all supposed to be friends here. I like it though. Yeah, you guys hit the nail on the head. I like Justin Jefferson a lot in this matchup. He's someone I'll bring up a little bit later when we talk about our daily fantasy lineups. I expect him to have a really good game for the Vikings. Let's head on over to the Baltimore Ravens. They are 7.5-point favorites against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles look like a mess and a half. The Ravens are the Ravens. Outside of one stinker against the Chiefs, they've just looked pretty unstoppable. I don't know what there is too much else to analyze here, but Rich, maybe is there a diamond in a rough for this matchup for you?
The diamond in the rough really is Travis Fulgham, the wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. When you have a garbage heap, he is the least damaged piece of garbage that has come out of Philly the last 2 weeks. So, the 7.5 point spread, I don't really understand that. I think the Ravens are going to kind of blow the doors off of Philly this week. If the Ravens can get their running game going, outside of Lamar Jackson, everything would be great. It's just, Ingram is having an off couple weeks. Dobbins is having an off couple weeks. They just need to have everything going together. And I think that's going to happen this week against a very depleted Eagles defense. The Ravens defense scored a touchdown last week. Patrick Queen is absolutely killing it. I think you can start the Ravens defense with ease every single week. On the flip side, it's still only going to be Sanders for me. Ertz is off the board finally. I know, Craig, you're happy about that, but I think he scored like 2 points last week. So if I'm starting Eagles, I'm going Sanders and possibly Travis Fulgham for like an add-in waiver wire claim this week. And for the Ravens, start everyone outside of the running backs, honestly.
Yeah, I agree with that. The Eagles are just it's a rough time to be an Interstate of Green writer because all of these teams are just garbage, just pure garbage. Marcus, anything to add on this matchup?
Travis Fulgham, he's going to be a big waiver wire pickup, but I'll probably sit him this week. Baltimore has only allowed touchdowns to 2 receivers, and they both play for Kansas City.
Someone has to score, Marcus. It's not going to happen any other way. They're going to be down 30 points.
It's going to be Miles Sanders. He's going to be their entire offense. Right. I'll probably sit Carson Wentz as well. Yeah. League leading 9 picks. Baltimore, they don't really give up points to quarterbacks except that one in Kansas City. And again, the running backs, it's just they don't really love one particular running back, so it's hard to focus in on one. I think they may all have good games because they probably run a score up on Philly, but you can't really focus on one. It's running back by committee, definitely. And you add in Lamar's rushing attempts. It just gets spread around too much.
So, I have nothing to add here. I think that's pretty much it. That's the Ravens-Eagles game. So Philly fans, prepare to be bored at 1 o'clock. I don't know.
The entire division is bad, so.
Yeah. It's
They used to be the toughest in the league. Now they just falling apart.
It's garbage.
Just the NFC least. Let's go on over to I think some pretty fun up-and-coming teams in the NFC here. We got the Chicago Bears on the road against the Carolina Panthers. The Bears are 1.5-point underdogs to the Panthers, so Vegas thinks this game could pretty much go either way. Last week, the Bears game came down to 1 point against Tom Brady and the Patriots, who apparently didn't realize it was 4th down, or apparently did, allegedly. That was a confusing game. I really did not expect the Bears to win that game, and credit to Nick Foles and Matt Nagy and the defense. Like they figured it out and they pulled it out. From a fantasy perspective, I still don't really love anyone on the Bears, but Rich, you made an addition this week on your fantasy squad that I'm eyeing. It's a tight end we've talked about historically on Code Green that I've really liked and you've always hated. So why don't you talk to me about Jimmy Graham?
Jimmy Graham loves Nick Foles. Nick Foles loves Jimmy Graham. I mean, whenever they get in the red zone, he's the first option, which is crazy when you have Allen Robinson on your team or even Montgomery. But you saw what happened last week. Jimmy Graham dropped a touchdown. Nick Foles said, not so fast. I'm going to throw one that you have to catch with one hand in an acrobatic move, and he got it done. So, yeah, I think it's going to continue with those two. Definitely a good combo to have. I wouldn't want to start Nick Foles, but, with tight ends being not very plentiful this year, especially with Zach Ertz getting 2 points last week, Jimmy Graham is a good add on the waiver this week.
Yeah, he's always been a talented tight end. I think he's disappointed a little bit since leaving New Orleans, but he still has a lot of talent and is definitely a big body threat. On the flip side of this matchup, last week I was singing the praises of Teddy Bridgewater, and he didn't disappoint. And I think as a Jets fan, this is certainly hard for us to admit, but we got to give some props to Robbie Anderson. I mean, he's balling out right now in Carolina. He's doing everything that we wanted him to do in New York. He's getting targeted almost over 10 times, every single game. He's getting in the end zone. I mean, he's just looking like a quality receiver. This is a much tougher matchup against Chicago, but I think if you have the two of them, Robbie Anderson and Teddy Bridgewater, that these are players you should probably start. They're getting a good connection. You can double up your points. This is a combination I think you could work into some daily lineups as well. I'm a big fan of what they're putting together in Carolina. Marcus, over to you. Any players that you're watching out for fantasy-wise in this one?
Chicago, I'm going to go with David Montgomery. He's getting more involved in the passing game. He has 6 targets in back-to-back games. And also Carolina has given up the most points to running backs this season. They've surrendered 9 touchdowns, which is the most. So David Montgomery could be a good start for you this week.
And Rich has Mike Davis starting, the Carolina Panthers running back, who's been on a tear since the Christian McCaffrey injury. So I'm in a way hoping Chicago's defense can slow down the running backs, but not slow down the passing attack, because I have the flip side of Carolina's offense. So that should be a fun one, Rich, to see how that unfoils over in Carolina.
Yeah, I mean he's running back 1 in the NFL since Christian McCaffrey went down. So I'm not saying any discredit Christian McCaffrey, because he is the best running back in that National Football League, but it just gives credit to that offensive line and the coach and Matt Rule. So it's going to be fun either way. If C-Mac comes back, I think they're probably going to split and they'll both have good games. But for this week, Christian McCaffrey can stay out one more week because we have to play, Craig.
We got to play. We got
We gotta play.
Let's talk about Joe Burrow and the Bengals taking on the Indianapolis Colts. The Bengals are 8-point underdogs here. I mean, listen, the Bengals didn't look good last week, but neither did the Colts. We talked about, Rich, how the Colts had been winning in spite of Phillip Rivers last week. They're able to run the football well. They have a pretty good defense, but I think that this is a pretty crazy spread. I think the Bengals don't lose by, more than a touchdown. So 8 points, I think they're no worse than 7 points. I think they have a shot at winning this one as well. I think Joe Burrow will have a good game. And I also like, on the flip side of the coin, I like Jonathan Taylor in this matchup for the Colts. This is a game my biggest take here is I don't understand why the Colts are such favorites. They got beat up by Cleveland last week. And I don't think they're that good. I think a couple weeks ago I thought they were better. Now I don't think they're that good. So, Marcus, let's start with you. Break this one down for us.
So I'm going to go Joe Mixon. I'll probably sit him. He had a breakout game a couple weeks ago. But, I mean, really, he's just not the stud that people probably drafted him to be. And this Colts defense is actually pretty good. Third fewest points to running backs this season. I think he might struggle. My weekly sit when it comes to Bengals is going to be A.J. Green. I'm just going to say it every week just because I'm probably going to be right every week unless he's in a different uniform. And a start that I'm going to throw out is the Colts kicker, Rodrigo Blankenship. He's averaging at least 11 points per game every week, and he's made the most field goals in the league. So it's a good chance he's going to give you some quality points, at least double digits, which kicker giving you double digits every week is always a good thing. So I'll probably start him if you can get him.
So, trivia question. Where did Rodrigo Blankenship go to college?
Liberty? I don't know.
No, he went to Georgia.
I knew you were.
And he made every single one of his extra points. The man never missed an extra point. So those glasses, I mean, obviously we look alike. He's going to be on fire every week. That's just who he is. He's perfect. So that's a good start. In this game, we talked about it. I think Phillip Rivers is washed up. I think the Colts may be looking for a new starter next year, even though they don't want to admit it. But the way that roster is built right now, they should be undefeated. And I mean, both these teams are getting beat up, but the Bengals weren't supposed to win many games. So I love the Colts defense start this week just because the Bengals are kind of, they got destroyed by the Ravens last week. But on the flip side, I think this game could be like a 10-3 type game because neither of these teams are doing much. It's going to be one that I'm going to skip, but I'm going to wish Joe Burrow all the best in the world.
We support Joe Burrow here on Daily Dynasty. Yeah. That's a game that I'm grateful that NFL Red Zone is a thing because I don't need to watch many minutes of that one. Let's head on over to a game that actually I think is going to be pretty exciting. Even when the Browns weren't that good, they always played the Steelers in kind of a fun fashion. The Cleveland Browns are 3-point underdogs against the Steelers. Rich, let's start with you because I know you're liking Big Ben in this matchup.
I love Big Ben every year. I think, he never goes as high as he should, but he always puts up the numbers that, the top quarterbacks put up. I mean, he's up there every single year. He has, 10 touchdowns already, which is insane. I mean, they're 4 games in. I mean, they already had, a bye week technically, based on all the COVID stuff. He has over 1,000 yards in 4 games, 10 touchdowns. That's pretty good numbers. So in this game, the biggest waiver claim of the week is going to be Claypool. He had 4 touchdowns last week against the Eagles. The Browns aren't that great in pass, defense, but they are 4-1. This game is going to be close. Obviously, this starts on the Browns side. Odell came back alive. He has almost 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Kareem Hunt, and then a nice, add in this week because I know a lot of tight ends are on buys. I think Austin Hooper is going to have a good game this week, which is your boy, Craig.
My guy.
On the flip side, I really like Big Ben starting. I like Claypool starting. I think you can start James Conner this week, which is someone I don't usually say I want to start. But the wide receivers, they're so up and down. You look at Deontay Johnson. He had 0.8, and then he's out. Juju Smith-Schuster didn't do a lot. Claypool was running the show. It just kind of switches week to week. So I would kind of steer clear of everyone outside of Big Ben and Claypool because those are the only ones that I know are going to put up numbers. But I think the Steelers are going to win, but I don't know if they can cover the 3.5. I think it's going to come down to like 2 points.
Yeah, I think this will be a fun one. And, the Browns are really into the trickery right now. And the wide receivers are throwing passes. They're doing reverses. Like they're really having a lot of fun. They're having a fun brand of football, which I think will make this one an exciting matchup. I'm actually going to buyer beware Chase Claypool. I think he's someone worth picking up. But very rarely do you see a rookie go off against a bad team and then, repeat the next week. He had another good game earlier this year against Denver. He had 17 fantasy points. Against Houston, he had 2.4. Against the Giants week 1, he had 6.5. So buyer beware here. I think he's worth the waiver ad. He's clearly someone that Ben likes on the football too. He has a lot of talent, especially in your dynasty leagues. But this is a young player, and it's a better team that he's going up against in Cleveland. So buyer beware. I don't know if I would necessarily start him this week. I think he's probably gonna swing back the pendulum a little bit and have a single-digit game. That's kind of my hot take of the week. Marcus, what about you? What's your opinion in this one?
Not much to add. Kareem Hunt definitely start. He's sharing carries with Nick Chubb, and he's still top 10 running back. He's still producing like he's in. If he got the bulk of the carries, he can be Kansas City Kareem Hunt probably. I'm with Craig on the Claypool. He had a great game, but I think he might come back down to earth and level out a little bit. You might fire him up against a really bad defense. Probably wouldn't start him if I got better options, but if I got somebody on the bye week, I could throw him in there. Big Ben, he's playing at a Pro Bowl level, even though the Pro Bowl got canceled. If it wasn't, he would definitely make it. I would say the only thing I would add is I'd probably sit Eric Ebron if you got him on your team to start. I mean, he's a touchdown-dependent tight end, and I don't think he's going to do much in many games this season. But other than that, not much else to add.
Rich, I thought I heard you chime in. Do you have something else? A little point.
When he said they canceled the Pro Bowl, I said thank God, and it's pretty ironic. They canceled the only game that fans never show up to. So
perfect timing by the NFL. Let's talk about the Denver Broncos. They're 9-point underdogs against the Patriots. Supposedly, according to Field Yates, when the Patriots return to practice on Thursday, QB Cam Newton is expected to rejoin the team. I don't know he's been removed from the COVID-19 list as of today, which is Wednesday, October 14th. For anyone listening to this, not while we're recording it, so you'd have to be a hacker to be listening to it right now. But so I don't know what that means. The Patriots are a bit of a wild card, right? And you don't know which version of the New England Patriots you're going to get, which from a betting perspective makes this game untouchable for me. But from a fantasy perspective, is there anyone on either side of the ball that you guys like? Marcus, let's start with you.
Not really. I really probably wouldn't start many people. Melvin Gordon, I'll sit him. Lindsey is healthy. I mean, that's even if Gordon plays. You just got a DUI. But if he does play, Lindsey is healthy. He's going to be splitting carries. New England, 6 fewest points to running backs. They're pretty good. Jerry Jeudy, he's going to go against Gilmore. If it's not Gilmore, then it's the McCourty twins. I mean, they're going to hone in on him, get rid of him. It's really nobody that stands out to me that's a must start in this game.
I'm Rich.
Unless you're desperate.
Well, and you might be. I mean, bye weeks, injuries.
COVID. Yeah.
Yeah, you might be desperate. Rich, what about you for all our desperate fans out there?
I mean, I would start Cam this week. I mean, I really would. I think Cam is going to come back. I think they're going to cover that 9.5. I think this is going to be the biggest blowout of the week. The Jets kept the game close with the Broncos the entire game, and the Jets are basically a D2 college team. So I think Cam Newton's probably going to throw for 3 touchdowns. My start in this bye week, not having Kamara and everything else, I actually have Damien Harris in my starting lineup in one of my leagues. He had 100 yards the last game he played. Sony Michel is on injured reserve. He should be the one who's the bell cow on that team. I mean, he's the one that has the most talent out of the running backs, I believe. He was very good at Alabama. And then the other start, I think Julian Edelman is going to come back to form just simply because, when COVID wasn't a thing for Cam Newton, I think he had close to 22 fantasy points the last time they played. So Julian Edelman, Damien Harris, and Cam Newton. So all Patriots, no Broncos. They're going to win by at least 14.
Hey, I'm going to watch the injury report, but if Cam plays, for sure they're winning by 14. And that's a very easy bet, -9. But just keep an eye on it. Keep an eye on the Twitter.
He's good to go. He beat the COVID. It's done. He got it.
Super Cam. Stronger than the Rona. Let's talk about the Detroit Lions are 3.5-point favorites on the road against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Listen, the Jags are such a crazy team to me. I can't quite figure them out. I can't tell if they're good. I don't know. I can't figure out who's the good players on the team. They're really mind-boggling to me. They lose last week to Houston. Some weeks Keelan Cole looks like he's good. Some weeks DJ Chark looks like he's good. There's this Laviska Shenault guy who I don't know where he came from, but all of a sudden he's good on the Jaguars. James Robinson is a week in, week out kind of consistent player on the Jacksonville side. But I just think they're overmatched here against Detroit, who isn't that good in their own right. They're not an incredible team, but I think they're consistently better than the Jaguars are.
Yeah, I mean, this is the game where, if you want to say, hey, you want to watch this terrible game, you would usually say, hey, you want to watch the Lions against the Jags. This is a game that I think only the people in the area will probably watch. But as far as, fantasy starters, all the wide receivers on the Jaguars for me are kind of, wishy-washy, like you said. I think if you have Chark, you should start him. Laviska Shenault from Colorado, he's good. I mean, the only reason I know that is because I wanted to just to draft him, and they can't do anything right. And of course, he has almost 300 yards receiving. So, but on the flip side, Prater, I think he's going to be a very good start. And it's ironic you're talking about kickers, but I mean, I think that he's going to be money in the bank this week for the Lions. I think they're going to score probably over 20 points. Probably have 3 field goals, 2 extra points, something fun like that. Stafford is a good start this week. Galladay, obviously, if you have him, you got to start him. But outside of that, I don't really see anyone besides James Robinson on the Jacksonville Jaguars I would start. James Robinson, he's consistent every single week. But this is a game that I'm gonna skip.
And another one where you're just thankful for NFL Red Zone.
Yeah,
you're not stuck to any game. Mark, is there anything you want to add here?
Not much. I would just say start Stafford if you need a QB. Multiple touchdowns in 3 straight games. Jaguars allow 11 touchdowns in the air. You got a good amount of weapons and Jones and Hockenson and so forth and so on. So Stafford could definitely be a good start for you this week.
Let's move on over to the Houston Texans at the Tennessee Titans. Texans 3.5-point underdogs against a Titans team that I just think is really, really good. They're really good. They're breaking all the rules of social distancing and COVID-19, but they're really good at football. I mean, they played that Tuesday night game against the Bills, and the Bills were a team that, I think the NFL community had accepted was probably one of the better teams this season, and the Titans embarrassed them. I mean, that was not an exciting game to watch. The Titans owned almost every second of that one. Josh Allen looked confused the whole game. Derrick Henry was running all over the place, knocking over Josh Norman with this stiff arm heard around the world. And Houston, I mean, they righted the ship somewhat last week, right, against Jacksonville. Head coach Romeo Crennel led them to a victory after the firing of Billy O'Brien. But I do not see a scenario in which the Texans can win this one, and I really don't even think it's close. 3.5 points seems like a gift from Las Vegas here in my betting perspective. So, Rich, you're nodding more than Marcus, so I'll kick it to you to kick this one off.
I mean, I don't like the Titans, for me personally, but they're going to beat the dog poop out of the Texans. I mean, there's no way it's not going to happen. I said the Patriots might be the biggest blowout. I forgot to look at this one. 3 points. I'm going to put my entire savings on this, I think. Titans are they're healthy, which is weird because they have COVID. So I think the COVID made them immune to actual injuries. So everyone's coming back off the COVID list this week. They get Humphreys back. Corey Davis is still out because he has super COVID. But AJ Brown played well on Tuesday. I think AJ Brown's going to be consistent against the Texans. You got to start Henry. You got to start Tannehill, who is succeeding and putting up Mahomes numbers because he doesn't have Adam Gase. And then on the flip side, I mean, Watson did, show, a little spark last week because he doesn't have Bill O'Brien with his butt chin trying to ruin his life. I like Will Fuller this week. Yeah. I want to like David Johnson, but I can't because he won't give me any reason to like him. He's consistent with like 10 to 15 points, but I need more than that. So I'd probably sit David Johnson this week, which I am, I think, against you. So Fuller, Watson, those are the starts. And then Brandon Cooks. I think he had 160 receiving yards last week. So he's ready to come back and play. On the flip side, Tannehill, Henry, A.J. Brown, Gostkowski, the Titans defense. You could start Teddy Bruschi. You could start whoever you want. I mean, anyone whoever was associated with the Titans, by all means, start them.
So Eddie George and Steve McNair, all fair game, right? Like,
Craig.
I love you a little, like, yeah.
Anyway, Marcus, what do you think about this game?
I think he said it all. I don't have much else to add. Next game.
This show's going great, guys. Where my little Bud Light seltzer went right to my head. We're having fun. Let's talk about the Washington football team. They're the underdogs against the New York Football Giants. 2.5 points is the spread. Kyle Allen is listed as the starter still. I don't know what his injury situation is like, but
he's not good. That's the injury. He's not a good player.
Well, yeah. He came down with a bad case of being bad at football.
That's right.
So it might end up being the Alex Smith show again. I don't know if he'll get the start. This does seem like a game where the Giants could get their first win, but I don't know. My gut keeps telling me that Washington's going to win here. When I look at games like this where it's just the teams are both so bad, I look to see who has more game breakers, right? Who has better blue chip players. And for me right now, that's Washington. They have Scary Terry McLaurin. They have Antonio Gibson, who's putting up big-time fantasy numbers. I just think that you got more blue chip players, you're going to win the game. So I'm going to say Washington wins. I'm probably going to put a little fiver down on them plus 2.5 because I think this game will probably be close. I don't think anyone's blowing anybody out, but I think they win this one outright. So that's my analysis of this garbage football game. Marcus, let's start with you.
I'll say Darius Slayton is a good start this week. He had a big game against Dallas, 8 catches, $129. Cooper Kupp and Woods were both top receivers last week against this defense. Antonio Gibson, another good start. Had 5 targets last week, caught them all, at least 10 fantasy points in 4 straight games and a rushing touchdown in 3 out of the 4 games. And Daniel Jones may have a good game. If Slayton goes off, there's a good chance that Jones can go off as long as he limits his interceptions. Those are my 3 starts in this garbage game, as you call it.
Who do you like to win? They both lose.
I'm going to go Giants because I have Slayton on some teams and no football team players.
No football team players. Rich, what about you? Who do you like? What do you like in this, if anything?
I like that I have Run Zone again. All the 1:00 games, whoever made the schedule needs to be fired. I like the Giants in this game for more reasons than one. I need them to win a game so my cesspool of a team can get the first pick. So obviously that's why I'm rooting the hardest. But the Giants actually have a really good pass defense. I mean, I think before the Rams game, they were 6th overall. I think they're still in the top 10. The Washington football team doesn't have a quarterback currently with Kyle Allen at the helm. But even if Alex Smith goes into the game, I think the Giants will be able to handle that. So Antonio Gibson, he's still a rookie. He's got to break into his shell. He's going to have bunions by the end of this game because he's going to be running all game long. But the Giants put up a huge fight against the Cowboys. The Giants should have beat the Cowboys last week. They were up 17-3. They should have won last week. And I think they're going to beat the Redskins just because of that. I mean,
they can't beat the Redskins, Rich. They're not in the NFL.
Well, the Giants were better when they were that name, Craig. So The football team is going to lose.
I think a big part of your analysis there is assuming that the Dallas Cowboys are good. The Dallas Cowboys aren't good.
The Dallas Cowboys are good on offense. They are not good on defense. So
the Dallas Cowboys are not talented. There's no D.
That's true. But
no
neither. I mean, the football team lost their biggest defensive player. So this game's just going to be trash. Just skip it and just look for the final. Don't bet it and hope for the best.
Is there a world in which this is like a 45-42 game and it's like the most fun game to watch ever?
The Madden world.
Because there's no defense, like, you know what I mean? Just everyone's out there running. It's like a bunch of 4-year-olds playing pee-wee soccer. They're just going all over the place.
The Madden world on rookie mode. That's the world.
All right. That's my analysis.
At the end of Sunday, the Jets will have the number 1 overall pick because the Falcons and the Giants could win. The Jets have no chance.
I really feel like all of these games this week are really bad. And speaking of which, the Jets are 9.5-point underdogs against the Miami Dolphins. From a daily perspective, I think there's a lot of value on the Miami Dolphins side. These are cheaper players that you can work into your lineups, and we'll talk about in just a little bit. But I think almost anyone from Miami is a good start this week. They have the ability to actually score some points. Like they have some talent on that offense. And I think Miami's defense is a must start because the Jets offense is just completely inept. They can't do anything. I mean, like, we would have a better shot at running that offense than anyone currently on the team. And I am not good at sports. So like that it's just like my being the truth about the Jets. Plus 9.5. I don't know. Maybe I won't bet against the Jets this week, but so far it's been working for me, and my bankroll keeps going up betting against them. So it's a good trend. But 9.5 seems like a lot, but I think the Dolphins are going to beat the dog poop out of the Jets. Man in the Jets hat, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Dolphins are going to win. Fitzmagic is going to be Fitzmagic. He's going to have 3 touchdowns. Parker is going to be the one that I think is going to get the most out of that. With Sam Darnold out, there's no shot. Joe Flacco is a dinosaur who, he doesn't have it anymore. But with that being said, Jameson Crowder makes anyone look good. So in daily and regular fantasy, I'm starting Jameson Crowder. He has 3 straight 100, yard games. He's the entire offense for the Jets right now. As far as waivers go, LaMichael Pirine, with Le'Veon Bell being cut, well, that's a whole different subject. But he's probably going to be the starter by the end of the year. I mean, he should be. He's the rookie. You're not going to have Frank Gore as, your starter going into next season. It's going to be the guy you drafted in the 4th round out of Florida, LaMichael Pirine. You got to get the young guys some playing time because the season's already over. So as far as starts go, Jameson Crowder, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Devonte Parker, Mike Gesicki, Gaskin. You can start Saunders, the kicker for the Dolphins. You can start the Dolphins defense. There's a trend there. So I think the 9.5, I don't think they're going to cover it because they never do. It's going to be a game where Jets fans are rooting for the Dolphins as well. So let's go Miami.
And Marcus, anything to add on this this wonderful football game kicking off the 4:00 block?
Not at all. I was going to say Fitzmagic and Crowder are probably the 2 biggest starts. I think Fitzmagic keeps it up. I think what did they play the 49ers last week?
Yeah,
and just went off on the Niners. Weird. It was a weird score, but not much to add. Same players. Rich stated, same players I would start.
So we're up to one of I would say 2 good matchups this week. Like, honestly, this might be the worst NFL schedule that we've ever gone over in any iteration of our podcast through the years. But this is finally, I think, a good game. Tom Brady and the Patriots hosting Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Devontae Adams practiced today. He missed the last 2 games. They had a bye week last week. So he's had the ability to heal up. He went off week 1 against the Vikings. I'm never going to let Marcus forget it. He got hurt week 2 against Detroit. He's been out ever since, but I think he's going to come back with a vengeance here. I mean, No, outside of Russell Wilson, I mean, Aaron Rodgers has just looked like the best quarterback in football. I mean, he's slinging it like it's nobody's business. Really impressive stuff. Tom Brady is having a good year. The Buccaneers are looking competent, but they lost a shocking game against the Bears last week that we talked about. That was a Thursday night game, if I remember correctly. So they've had some time to stew on it, marinate on it. Tom Brady doesn't really have two bad games in a row. So I think this should be a really fun one. From a fantasy perspective, Marcus, let's start with you. Who are some players that you got your eyes on?
I'm going to go with Tom Brady. He should be getting Chris Godwin back this week, and that'll definitely provide a boost in the passing game along with Mike Evans and the other weapons, Scotty Miller, their plethora of tight ends. I think he can definitely have a good game with one of his biggest weapons coming back. And I'm going to go the tight end for Green Bay, Robert Tonyan. There we go. 5 touchdowns since week 2 and a touchdown 3 straight games. And the Buccaneers have allowed tight end touchdowns in back-to-back games. And this game might turn into a shootout. And if it does, I definitely think he can get a touchdown, maybe 2. So those are 2 of my starts this week for this game.
And Rich, what about you?
My favorite part of fantasy this week is that Robert Tonyan could be started at tight end or wide receiver because they haven't fixed it yet. So I'm going to be spamming Robert Tonyan in all my leagues. Minus the one against you, Craig, because he's been taken for weeks. But I love the Packers in this game. I mean, I thought this game would be better if you look at the beginning of the season, but I don't think this is going to be as close as people think. I mean, the 1 point, spread doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I think the Packers are one of the best teams in the NFL. And I think the Buccaneers, you're trying to make them the Patriots, and they're just not right now. I love Devonte Adams if he plays. I love Aaron Jones if he plays. I'm starting Tonyan, like I said, so I love him. And on the flip side, Mike Evans, he's not going to catch probably more than 50 yards, but 3 of those catches will be 1-yard touchdowns. So I'm going to start Mike Evans this week. I know he was questionable going into Wednesday, but he's questionable every single week and just plays. And then Ronald Jones, I think he took that starting role over. I don't think there's any, question about it. He's going to be the guy. Fournette, he had no points. He shouldn't have played last week. He was injured. But Ronald Jones, Mike Evans on the Bucs, and then pretty much everyone on the Packers, especially Aaron Rodgers, Tonyan, and Adams and Jones.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. And the point you brought up about the line here is really what I thought the fascinating thing about this game was. I don't think it's going to be a close game. Even if it is a shootout, I think the Packers end up winning by about 7 to 10 points. I just think they're a better overall complete football team. And you're actually getting pretty good odds. It's minus 105, so it's almost doubling your money if you go ahead and place a bet. So I feel pretty good about that one. The over-under's at 54.5. This would be the matchup where I'd consider maybe playing with the over-under, but that's pretty high for my liking to play around with it. So maybe take a look at some player props and parlays with some players on the Packers offense. Let's head on over to what is Sunday Night Football, which I guess at the beginning of the year sounded like it would have been a good matchup, and now I think will be a big snooze fest. The Los Angeles Rams against the San Francisco 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo started last week. He should not have started last week. Something was not right. I don't know what it was, but he should not have been playing. He got benched heading into the second half. That they just didn't look like they were ready to play at all against Miami. Maybe they right the ship this week, but the Rams are a pretty good football team. Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods coming off of some big games. Jared Goff's been looking good. They're running the football effectively, but no one has really run away with that kind of star running back position in Los Angeles, in my opinion. It's still kind of a bit of a carousel. I like the Rams defense a lot in this matchup, and I think almost anyone on the offense you could get away with starting due to the injuries across San Francisco's defense. But Marcus, let's start with you. Anything to add here?
You mentioned Jimmy G. I wouldn't play him. Ankle injury. Didn't look good. I would sit him if that's your bye week option. I would look for another option. Also, the Rams tight end Tyler Higbee. I'll probably sit him. No touchdowns in 4 of the last 5 games. I mean, Goff may look his way, may get a touchdown, but you really can't depend on it. It's not that consistent. So I would definitely sit them too. As far as a game, I'll probably take the Rams. Niners just did not look good. Fitzmagic came in and did his thing. I think the Rams can definitely take this game. Woods, they got Cooper Kupp, they got the running back by committee. Goff looking good. I'll take the Rams to win this one.
And Rich, over to you.
I mean, Jimmy G to me is kind of like modern day Mark Sanchez. Mark Sanchez succeeded because his defense would give him the ball. With the San Francisco 49ers losing half of their defense, it's going to be an uphill battle for him. I don't think he can be the guy that they have to rely on. With that being said, I love Raheem Mostert. Even in a terrible game last week, he put up solid fantasy numbers. So Mostert and Kittle, I mean, those are the big guys on, San Francisco. You can throw in Debo, but Debo was a lot better last year than he was this year. On the Rams, as far as the running backs go, I think this is the closest we've come to seeing who is going to be the guy. I think that's going to be Henderson. He has more starts than anyone this year. Akers was healthy, and he didn't get on the field much because Henderson was doing a lot of things. I love Kupp, and I love Woods every single week. I mean, Woods is my top 5 probably favorite players in the NFL. So I think the Rams will win this one. I think they cover the spread. I think you're looking at a 2-4 49ers team that's just waiting for Bosa to come back. And I think the Seahawks are going to run away with this division when all is said and done.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. -3 is really, I think that's another gift from Vegas. I think that's a real easy bet as far as I'm concerned. Let's head on over to Monday night, kind of. The sun will still be up at 5 p.m. The Kansas City Chiefs take on the Buffalo Bills. The Bills just got the tar beaten out of them by the Tennessee Titans. Maybe they got some COVID early in the first quarter and it affected their gameplay. Who knows? We'll find out. Either way, they're the 4-point underdogs against the Chiefs. Like I said, prior to last week or yesterday, I would have thought that the Bills could have potentially been a contender in this one. After the way the Titans just demolished them on national TV, I really don't think this one is close. I don't think they're in the same league as the Chiefs because I think the Chiefs are so much better than the Titans. It's the age-old start. You can start almost anyone on the Chiefs offense, in my opinion. I get that the Bills are a talented team defensively. I still think that the Chiefs put up monstrous offensive points.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would say is the Bills and the Raiders defense, they play pretty similar. I mean, they're going to be rushing Mahomes all game long, but based on what just happened against the Chiefs, they're not going to lose 2 games in a row. So I think Mahomes is going to have a huge bounce back game this week. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire has a good game. But I think the person who's going to have the biggest game out of anyone is probably going to be Stephon Diggs again. I think he was targeted 20 times against the Titans, put up over 22 fantasy points. I mean, he didn't score a touchdown, but, Josh Allen, when he was in trouble, he was giving it to Stephon Diggs, and they're going to be in trouble again. So my biggest fantasy start this week is Diggs, Mahomes, obviously, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Besides that, I mean, you can't start either of these defenses. It's going to be a high-scoring game. But at the end of the day, I think the Chiefs are going to be 5-1. Bills looking at a 2-game losing streak, which brings me joy. You could also start Josh Allen. I know I'm a Josh Allen hater, but he's going to put up solid numbers because he has to. He's going to sling the ball to Stephon Diggs. He's going to be running around just as much as Mahomes is. So, but at the end of the day, it's going to be the Chiefs. 3.5, I think they can cover that.
Yeah, Diggs is clearly a favorite target of Allen. Every time he was in trouble, that's where he was looking, and Diggs was coming up with it. I mean, he was catching balls left and right, tons of fantasy points. I think he's a virtual must-start, and probably someone I should have been using in my FanDuel lineup, but I sort of neglected that. Maybe there's time to update before we get to that segment. Marcus, let's throw it over to you. Kansas City against Buffalo. What's your opinions here?
I'm going to go with 2 starts. They're both kind of in similar positions. Sammy Watkins is out for Kansas City, so I'm going to say McCole Hardman. I think he gets an uptick in targets. He's Tyreek Hill light. basically. He got the speed. He can produce for you. And in Buffalo, I'm going to say Cole Beasley because of John Brown's injury. If he doesn't play, Cole Beasley can see an uptick in his targets. Good PPR player, double digits in 4 straight games. And like you said, it could be a high-scoring game. Josh Allen is most likely will have to sling the ball. So Cole Beasley could be a beneficiary of that outside of Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, Beasley was a player I was impressed with last week, too. He made some impressive catches. He's a guy you often forget about, but he gets you some solid numbers, and someone I'm glad that you reminded me of because he's someone to keep an eye on. And now the last game of the week, real Monday Night Football, 8:15 p.m. The Arizona Cardinals take on the Dallas Cowboys, the Andy Alton-led Dallas Cowboys. This probably would have been a closer game if it were not for the Dak Prescott injury. With that being said, I don't think that the Cowboys are going to be able to keep up. I think this was going to be a shootout before, the injury. And now I don't think the Cowboys can put up enough points to keep up with the Cardinals. Cardinals 1.5 points. I'm going to bet that one pretty hard because I think they're going to win this by at least 10 points. I get Andy Dalton's a veteran quarterback and all that, but I just don't. I've never been a fan of his. Maybe he's going to shock the world here, but I think the Cardinals win this one pretty easily. Marcus, am I crazy in my thought process here?
A little bit. So I think Andy Dalton is going to be a good start because the Cardinals have allowed at least 250 yards passing to 3 different QBs this year. And Dallas has a ton of weapons, and they have an elite running back. Andy Dalton may not be the most amazing QB, but they made the playoffs a lot in Cincinnati. They made the Pro Bowl, made the playoffs. He couldn't win in the playoffs, but this is the regular season. I mean, he can do some dump offs. You got CeeDee Lamb, Gallup, Amari, Zeke. Cardinals defense allowing hundreds of yards. I think he can put up numbers in this game. Also, I think another start would be Christian Kirk. I think he can put up some decent numbers in this game. Cowboys allowed the second most fantasy points to wide receivers this year. And, I see DeAndre Hopkins going off, but also Christian Kirk can be a beneficiary of this, the holes in the Dallas defense.
Marcus, I think you're right. Andy Dalton can put up numbers. He can put up interceptions. Rich, over to you. What's your thoughts in this game?
I mean, as weird as this sounds, I think the Cardinals are still underperforming. I mean, anyone could beat the tar out of the Jets. I mean, literally, we probably can have a 3-person team and somehow score a touchdown against all 53. I just think they're underperforming. I think the Cowboys now, Andy Dalton knows this is his last shot. I mean, if he ever wants to be a starter, if he wants to somehow prevent the Cowboys from giving Dak Prescott that extension, this is his time to shine. And I think it's almost impossible for him not to have a good season just based on the talent around him. Even if he drops it off to Zeke 20 times a game, which is bound to happen. I think Zeke's numbers are about to go through the roof. He's going to be higher than Kamara for the rest of the season, I think. But I mean, I think this game is going to be close. I mean, the spread is 2, and it makes sense to me. Kyler Murray, the way that the Cowboys are strong is more so against the run than the pass, but their defense is just horrid. So, I mean, I would not start Kenyon Drake this week just because I think he is about to lose his job to Chase Edmonds. If you need a waiver wire start this week, Chase Edmonds is actually someone I would start this week as far as waiver wire. But I somehow, some way, I like the Cowboys in this game. And I'm probably dead wrong, but it's like the upset special for me this week. Like how the Rams beat the Cowboys. That's going to be this.
I think you guys are crazy. I really do. I'll respect the opinion, but listen, I don't think Andy Dalton has it anymore. It's been a long time since he led the Bangles to the playoffs. And on top of that, he hasn't been practicing with these guys. And I think as much as the Cardinals have been underperforming so far this season, They looked real good last week against a bad defense in the Jets. And guess what? They're playing another very bad defense in Dallas. I don't see any scenario in which the Cowboys are able to stop the offense of the Cardinals. And I don't see Andy Dalton being able to match that. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored, but I don't see a scenario in which Andy Dalton keeps up.
This is going to be over 55. Like this one, I know we don't mess with the over-unders, and 55 seems like a lot. This one will be over 55. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, I see this being like a 45-27 game. Something crazy like that. But that's all the games. All of them, as bad as they were, 2 of them on Monday, none of them on Thursday. Yeah, that was probably the worst slate of NFL games that I think I've ever talked about. Let's talk about some FanDuel daily fantasy options. And this is going to be like a shot in the dark in which tab this is going to share. Rich, this looks like your lineup. Why don't you take us through it?
All right. So Ben Roethlisberger talked about earlier in the show. He's putting up top quarterback numbers. He's not the most expensive guy this week. So for me, Cleveland's going to give up a lot of touchdowns, a lot of yards. And Big Ben's going to be the recipient. Second one, I got Alexander Madison, just because Cook is not in this week. Madison, showed last week that he could take on a bulk of the carries and be successful. He's going to get the carries from the beginning of the game to the end. He's not super expensive either at 7,000. James Robinson is very consistent every single week. He's going against a not so great Lions defense. Again, he's cheap, which he should be higher than what he is. So that's why I'm going with James Robinson. Next one, he's basically the top wide receiver in the NFL right now. Robbie Anderson, still kind of getting disrespected by me included, but he is still very cheap. It doesn't make sense. You should put him in your lineup before they change that. He's only at 6,500. Next, I have Jameson Crowder, 100 yards, 3 straight games. I don't see that changing with Miami. The Jets are going to be playing from behind like they do every single week, and that's when Crowder gets all his yards and his points. On the flip side, Devonte Parker, it's going to be the Fitzmagic school bus show, and Devonte Parker is probably going to get at least 2 touchdowns against the Jets. Crap. At tight end, Mark Andrews, the most consistent, I think tight end this week, just because Philly doesn't have a defense. Philly's going to be playing from behind, but it won't matter because Mark Andrews still gets the ball because the Ravens always run up the score. There is no such thing as the mercy rule for Baltimore. Kareem Hunt I have in the flex. He's the guy. There's no Nick Chubb. He's on IR. Johnson couldn't kind of split with him last week. It's just Kareem Hunt. That's it. And at 7,000, that's still super, super cheap. And then with all that money left over, I was able to play the Patriots defense against the Denver Broncos, who I think the Patriots are just going to manhandle. So this doesn't have the flashiest of names, but I think it's consistent from top to bottom. And I think it's definitely going to give you some money at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it's all players that we talked about already on this show. I think it's a really solid combination, and I like where you chose to spend your money, which I think is an important theme in creating effective daily fantasy lineups. Is you need to kind of creatively choose where to spend your money. So with that being said, I went for some value, I thought, at the quarterback position in Ryan Fitzpatrick and Jonathan. It's an incredible matchup. We talked about it before. I like Jonathan Taylor for the Colts. He's an exciting rookie. It's a good matchup against Cincinnati. We've talked about James Robinson. And where I chose to spend my money was on Devonte Adams. He's fresh, good matchup. Aaron Rodgers right now is one of the most dangerous quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't see a scenario in which Devonte Adams doesn't have a good game. I love Terry McLaurin this week, and the Giants are a rough team. I think eventually Alex Smith will be the quarterback playing this week. I don't know if he'll start, but eventually he'll get in there, and Terry's going to get his touches. I'm doing a Dolphins stack here. I like Devonte Parker. You talked about him. I like Mike Gesicki as well at the tight end position. Justin Jefferson, we talked about earlier in the program, actually right at the start of the program. It's a great matchup. I think he's going to score a lot of points, and you're really getting, I think, good value at $5,900 there in the lineup. And right back at you, New England Patriots defense. It's too good of a matchup to not play. So I have a little bit of salary cap remaining. Remember, it's there to spend, but you don't have to spend all of it. You know, if you see a couple $100 here, as long as you're happy with all the matchups, that's okay. Like you're not impressing anybody by spending all of it. So if you're happy with your matchups with $1,000, a couple $100 left, fine. So be it. And that's it, guys. That's Daily to Dynasty. Is there anything you guys want to add before we wrap this one up?
Let's go Giants. Let's go Falcons. And let's go Dolphins.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, this is going to be a pretty, I think, a pretty slow weekend for the NFL. A couple of good games there, especially in the later half of the day on Sunday. And Monday's night's games looks pretty good. Enjoy your Thursday nights to yourselves. I just binge watched all of The Cabin on Netflix with Bert Kreischer, and it was hysterical. So maybe instead of Thursday Night Football, check that one out. Could be kind of fun. This has been a real fun show, guys. Remember to check out our friends over at the Underdog newsletter, jokermag.com/newsletter. And for Rich and Marcus and John, who at some point will get back on this program. I promise we didn't vote him off the island or anything. He's just a busy fella. But we'll get him back on this show to help you out with your daily fantasy lineups pretty soon. But for Rich, Marcus, and John, I'm Craig. Thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you next time.